Katherine Newcomer. I'm here with my book, The Phoenix and the Falcon. It's a historical romance. I'm doing readings from it, especially during the pandemic. I think things are getting better. I'm going to be reading from chapter 1. I read from the prologue last time, and if you missed it, you can check it out on YouTube. I'm also on Facebook. You can get this book on Amazon.com, The Phoenix and the Falcon, the dark historical romance. So we'll see how far we get. I'm also have my Facebook page up. If you want to see this on Facebook, that's fine. Hopefully we're streaming on Facebook. I'm not seeing it yet, but it should come along pretty quickly. So when we last left Helena, it was 415 AD. Now she's waking up for her dream, and it's 427 AD. So she's waking up from her dream, and this is where we are. Huns! A day's journey, in the name of the gods, awake. A man's voice ripped through the air, slicing through the last fragments of her dream. Groggy from sleep, Helena rubbed her green eyes. Her ears strained, listening for another call. Her throat constricted as she inhaled the close odor of stale sweat and dirty clothes. Her son, only 3, slept at her side. The courtyard in Constantinople was long gone. After all, at 18, wasn't she a woman grown? Blinking away tears, Helena remembered the hoofbeats. They had awakened her, robbing her of grandfather's embrace. She shivered, not from the cold night air, but from sudden fear. The man's voice rang out. "Water from my horse," he shouted, outside in the chill autumn air. She sat up, flinging long dark hair from a wide brow, alarmed, yet obscurely disappointed. The horseman had not come for her. Marooned for 5 years in a primitive village of 20 houses, Helena had made a religion of hope. She prayed for rescue, yet continually speculated on avenues of escape. She waited and watched and planned for the eventual day when Mikhail would be old enough to survive the journey to Persia, where her grandfather's family lived. Brushing away disappointment, she pulsed with curiosity about the night traveler. The women on the wives' side of the thatched house stirred, and their whispers were shrill with panic. Careful not to disturb her son, she quickly slid from their sleeping pad. Mikhail dreamt with innocent abandon. His black curls framed his sweet face. Her heart pounded. She stood, poised for action. The man spoke of Huns. Their very name inspired terror within the safety of the great walled city of Constantinople. Here on the open steppes, north of the great inland Aral Sea, she could not begin to imagine the peril. Her mind racing, Helena questioned who would travel at night, in reckless defiance of the wolves. As winter approached, the animals ran in packs, hunger lending them desperate strength. She glanced at the wooden back door. In the next room, Maga roused Kansbur, the aging leader of the village. "Get up," Maga whispered with a hiss. He snorted, his sleep interrupted mid-snore. Helena edged over to the woven partition separating the wives and children from Kansbur. She was not alone. Already other women were peering through the screen, busily elbowing each other aside for a better angle. Helena was reluctant to spy on Kansbur and his mistress, yet curiosity overwhelmed her sense of etiquette. Feeling self-conscious, she looked through the fraying tapestry. With his back to Maga, Kansbur was now awake. He sat inertly on their low bed. His large feet were motionless on the floor. A large fireplace was red with bright embers warming his side of the mud and thatched house. Helena burned with impatience. "Go on," Maga said, prodding him with her outstretched hand, mirroring Helena's frustrations. "He said Huns." "The whore," the older wife said at Helena's side. Struck by her venomous tone, Helena stared at the graying woman. For the past 3 years, Maga had tormented Kansbar's wives, flagrantly exploiting her favorite sadist with her husband. Tonight, Helena was glad that someone, anyone, even Maga, was able to prod Cansbar into action. Outside, the horse jiggled its bridle, its hoof pawed the ground. Helena could wait no longer. First checking if Mikhail still slept, she lithely stepped to the back door. Without a sound, she slipped outside to look. As always, the wind from the steps blew, buffeting her cheeks. The half-moon was bright, casting long shadows. Hugging the wall, she walked lightly to the front edge of the house and peered around the corner. Even mounted on a horse, Helena could see that the man was tall. His blonde hair was tied back loosely. His metal breastplate gleamed in the moonlight. Over his shoulder, he carried a clutch of arrows, in his hand a glistening blade. His voice was muscular, bred for speed. Memory teased her. Years ago, in Constantinople, she had seen horsemen armed this way, but could not remember their tribe. A shaft of hope kindled in her heart. She held her breath. Exhaling slowly, she calmed the butterflies in her stomach and dared to consider if he could be a messenger from home. After all, she reasoned, why else would he be alone on the steps? She studied him, watching his every move, the ease with which he sat on his mount, the smooth, practiced manner with which he held his blade. As if sensing her gaze, he looked in her direction. As he moved his roan horse toward her, she retreated into deeper shadow. You there, come out, I see you, he said without menace. Prudence forbade movement, but she stepped forward, away from darkness into the moonlight. What's your name? He asked. Just then, Cansbar threw open the front door, announcing himself with a loud bang. Helena edged from view. You've disturbed our peace, Cansbar said in his most authoritative voice. The stranger glanced once more in Helena's direction, but did not betray her presence. I bring grave news, the blond man said. His Slavic was accented but understandable. What is it? Cansbar asked, his voice catching in his throat. Father! Ivan bellowed from across the crude square. A young man emerged from his hut, blunt sword in hand. The stranger assessed him with a glance and then returned his focus to Cansbar. With my own eyes, I saw a large band of Huns, not a day's ride away. No, Cansbar gasped. I don't believe him. Ivan said, reaching his father's side. I've never heard of them riding this far. His light brown hair was lanky, obscuring a face which could have been handsome, if not ruined by a perpetual sneer. No, son, Cansbar said, speaking slowly. In my father's day, many tribes passed through our hands. It was a time of terror. The stories were horrible. Cansbar looked at the stranger with considering eyes. You say you saw them? Yes. Come inside. We'll discuss this further. The man leapt easily from his mount. He gave its neck a brisk pat, then allowed one rein to dangle to the ground. The horse lowered its head to the sparse grass, but did not move from its position. Helena felt a stirring of foreboding. As Cansbar and Ivan escorted the stranger inside, she scanned the square for prying eyes. Keeping to the shadow, she stepped closer to the roan. It raised its neck and laid back its ears. Warrior trainer, you? Well, I'll keep my distance, she murmured in a soft voice. Unafraid, she hummed the soft tune her grandfather chanted to calm restive horses. The animal pricked its ears forwards and watched her with alert eyes. Out of reach of striking hooves, Helena quickly noticed that its breathing was smooth and its neck dry. You're a beauty, she said. He had no urgent need for water. As if in response, the animal nickered softly, his eyes still on her. He cropped grass again. When she slipped through the back door, the women were in an uproar. Their excitement was palpable. No longer were their whispers hushed. Their voices were agitated, betraying their nervousness. Everyone was beside the woven tapestry, trying to peek through. Ludmilla kept saying, hush, but to no avail. For the moment, she had lost her authority. The other wives had stopped listening to her. Despite all the noise, Mikhail had not awakened. He was by far the youngest and the soundest sleeper. Helena's face softened as she quickly smoothed the threadbare blanket over his slender shoulders. Lying in position by the worn tapestry, Helena watched the stranger. At 6 feet, he towered over Cansbar, who was easily the tallest man in the village. Even Ivan's bulky build was no match for the visitor's muscular, though tapered torso. The blond horseman moved with the grace of a panther, at ease, yet coiled for action. He radiated confidence. Cansbar's expression grew cunning as he eyed the stranger's gear. Bile rose in her throat. She remembered that look all too well. 5 years ago, he gazed at her grandfather's caravan with the same light in his eyes. His words had dripped with obsequious courtesy as he had helped her grandfather, near to death, from his white stallion. Yet Kanzar's face had been avid with greed as his eyes had lingered at the heavily laden camels and Helena, as if she were a bundle of goods. As Kanzar sheathed his weapon, a fine Persian sword, she wanted to rip it from his coarse hands. The blade had belonged to her grandfather and his father before him. Helena clenched her fist and forced herself to be still. The blond man glanced at the sword with an expert's eye. She discerned no avarice in his expression, only surprise, tempered by curiosity. Provocatively draped by the blankets, Maga's pose was generous. Helena took an obscure satisfaction in the fact the stranger looked at Maga once and then ignored her to warm his hands at the fire. The flames burnished his blond hair with copper. His cheeks were clean-shaven, showing a strong jawline. His nose was straight, if a bit long. His head carriage was erect, almost regal. Helena guessed that he had blue eyes, but the light was too dim for certainty. He faced Kanzar. He had positioned himself so that his back was to a solid wall. In his line of sight, the door was close by to his right, and the tapestry was to his left. All at once, Helena knew in her bones that he was not a mere messenger from Constantinople, but a soldier, a hunter after prey. This man had seen others die in battle, many at the point of his own sword. His eyes scanned the room, checking its perimeters. Blood rushed to her face, her breathing quickened. She felt fear. Remembering her childhood training, she calmed herself by feeling her body's sensation, allowing its turmoil to pass without judgment. She sensed her grandfather's presence, almost as if she heard his voice, reminding her to listen not only to the outside world, but to her heart. Her breathing became deeper, quieter, as she considered her impressions. Helena knew that something was terribly wrong. The horse had been fresh, not even lathered. The man's back was supple, with no sign of fatigue from hours in the saddle. He had not ridden very far. His leather garb was sturdy, perfectly adapted for combat. His breastplate glistened, polished to a fine patina. He moved as one with the sword at his side, without a trace of awkwardness. He reminded her of a falcon who watched dispassionately as the hare fled just before swooping in for the kill. Helena retreated to Mikhail, whispering him awake. She briskly dressed him in his warmest clothing and wrapped him in her old fur-lined coat. Firmly she hushed his complaints. Pulling on a thick wool dress, she hid two small sheathed daggers, one in her side pocket, the other strapped above her knee. Both weapons, finely made, were a tribute to her ingenuity. After her grandfather's death, she had managed to keep them from Kanzar, along with a few golden coins, by hiding them under her clothes. He had not thought to search her after she had given up her mother's ring, without a word, mistaking her shocked grief as compliance. As Lena prepared for the worst, the men spoke what seemed nonsense to her ears. Their voices were reasonable and moderate in pitch. Words about a band of Huns and the nearby silk route filtered through the partition. She believed none of it. This man had brought with him more than warnings. Her ears roared, echoing her pounding heart. Anxiously, she combed fingers through her dark, flowing hair. Her heart whispered that Mikhail was too young to survive a long journey. She dared not consider the wolves and the roving, marauding bands, but her instincts urged flight. Obeying the impulse, she picked up her old satchel, always kept stocked for escape. In the leather bag, she had an old blanket, a few clothes, and most importantly, a bridle. All that remained was to disappear through the back door. "Let's go outside, Mikhail," she whispered. "The night is clear. I'll let you look at the stars just this once, then we'll see if grandfather's horse sleeps well." Mikhail's hand in hers, she quietly stepped to the door, closer to safety. The wolves pushed to the back of her mind. One danger at a time, she reasoned. "Helena! Helena!" Ludmilla shouted, still the head wife, despite Mag's attempts to subvert her authority. Though gray from age, her face had strength beneath her many lines. "What are you about, girl?" Helena held her breath. In the dim light, she turned slowly, panicking, wondering if she had been seen. "See to the men," Ludmilla ordered. "Didn't you hear me call you? They asked for meat. Hurry and make yourself useful." Soundlessly, Helena placed her bag by the door. With Mikhail at her side, she walked over to Ludmilla, who was seated by a stool by the tapestry. "Must I go in there? I'm afraid." "You've nothing to fear, girl," Ludmilla reassured her. "But why have you wakened little Mikhail? It's unlike you to disturb his sleep. Give him to me. I'll have Ariana put him back to bed." "Ludmilla, something's wrong. There's more to the stranger than he's telling. Ridiculous. He's all alone and in trouble. Didn't you hear what happened to his caravan? Murdered by Huns. No one has ever heard of them since my father's time. You, of all people, should be sympathetic to his plight. Why, what if Cansbar had not taken you in, even honored you as his bride? Think of what might have become of you. Helena became still. Like a torrent, words rose from her depths. He broke his oath to my grandfather. You forget his promise to sendward home. And said he paid off our guards so they wouldn't go back to Constantinople. She hesitated. But Cansbar's greed lost him a fortune. Our steward would have rewarded him far beyond what he stole from our caravan. She added with quiet vehemence. Have you no gratitude? We gave you a home. You disappoint me. Go, serve the men. Helena collected herself. You treated me almost like a daughter, Ludmilla. For your kindness, I am grateful. I shall never see the same at Cansbar. Your Ariana is 15 and not yet wed. I was 13 when he forced me to be his bride. Enough, Helena. What's done is done. And remember that once Mikhail was on the way, he left you alone. And Mag has been keeping him amused for over 3 years. Be thankful for your blessings, girl. Helena lowered her voice. I pray each night for her continued success. Ludmilla laughed, a pleasant sound. Her eyes twinkled as they met Helena's. Now hurry. We've no time for idle chatter. Go. The stranger won't bite you. My Ivan's there. At the mention of Ludmilla and Cansbar's eldest, Helena's shoulders stiffened. Yet to his mother she wisely offered no criticism. Before Ludmilla could prevent it, Helena whisked Mikhail with her through the tapestry. The older wife sighed with exasperation. With her next breath, Helena heard her ask Ariana to see to the stranger's horse. Helena stepped quietly into the room, observing all forms of modesty, eyes to the ground, head slightly bowed, with her soft brown hair obscuring her face. When Cansbar saw Mikhail, he flared his nostrils as his mouth twisted into a frown. By the gods, Helena, Ivan interjected, why did you bring the brat? Ignoring his eldest half-brother, Mikhail flung himself into his father's open arms. Even Cansbar could not resist the child's charm. He pushed him away gently, giving him an affectionate pat on the head. Had to see for yourself, Cansbar asked, ignoring Ivan's sulky stare. Well, just this once. Stay by the fire. If you don't say a word, I'll let you watch. Mikhail nodded solemnly, as if he had been allowed to participate in a secret ritual. He dashed back to his mother, his gray-blue eyes dancing with excitement. Her hands on his shoulders, Helena glanced at the dwindling supply of peat by the fire and immediately recognized a pretext for escape. Cansbar clapped twice. Helena, fetch mead, bread, and meat for our guest. As she stepped forward to obey, her eyes met those of the strangers. For an instant, it was as if her heart beat with his. Her surroundings faded, and she saw only the blond man. She breathed deeply, experienced the unexpected rapport. Helena, the stranger said in a gentle voice, your name is not common in these parts. His sympathetic tone assaulted her veneer of self-composure. Against all reason, she felt an impulse to ask his help, yet she said nothing. Shaken to her core, she tore her gaze from his vivid blue eyes and turned to prepare the simple meal. That's the end of chapter 2. So I will be reading part of chapter 1, sorry. I will be reading more next week. I'm going to try to see if there are any questions from Facebook on my iPad. But, doing more than one platform, not so easy. I don't know if anybody asked me anything. So I don't see anything. But next week, if you have questions, I will be happy to answer them. So I look forward to seeing you next week. 7:45, chapter 2. We'll see what happens with Helena. He is that tall, blonde stranger. What could go wrong? Take care. Have a good week.